This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob spreads disinformation. He has her finger on the trigger warning, and Tim is picking on Deepak again. Deepak. Let's sing Deepak. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. Let me explain that little intro. Music's still playing, and apologize for all the playing. Hi, I'm Brian Gregory. This episode is going to be, let's see, let's put it back up again for just so I can read it. Tonight's Virtual Skeptic episode is intended for mature audiences only, may contain reference to violence,
like violence to the English
not
language?
plural, decapitation apparently, and Deepak Chopra and scary robots, which is always normal. It's not really need a warning for that. So hide your children, hide your wife. This is Virtual Skeptics. Hi, welcome. I apologize already. If you're watching, this is our thing. Let me introduce you guys. Let's see, who we got this week? We got Bob. Bob's back. Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Bob, who's on every week. He's a conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and Swift blog contributor. And then we have Eve. Eve, also a special guest who is on every week. Editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality. And finally, our regular correspondent, Tim, Sarah fellow blogger, Skeptical.
Senior toll correspondent, Tim Farley.
Dog walker.
Let's see, Skepticality contributor and creator of What's the Harm? Hey, everybody. If you're watching, I'm not going to apologize again. Let's see.
I apologize for nothing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let's see. You're watching and you want to participate and you want to say something smart and get it on the air because, I don't know, because you feel like it. And, hey, we're broadcasting and you're not. Tweet it with hashtag Virtual Skeptics or comment on the YouTube channel or ask us a question using the Q&A app on Google+. First up this week, I think Tim's got something awesome to share. A trivia question?
Oh, yeah. Trivia question.
The whole background music for the correspondent thing?
Yeah, trivia question. This one should be pretty easy, I think. Let me make sure I've got my Twitter coin up and stuff, because the answers are probably going to come in quick. Skeptic Magazine. You know Skeptic Magazine. It's been around since the 90s. Usually has an insert in it for younger readers called Junior Skeptic. And the name of that was taken from a TV show. What TV show did the name Junior Skeptic come from?
Electric Company.
No.
No?
Good guess.
Oh, that would have been awesome. Our secondary quiz is if you guys can figure out what the heck is on the monitors behind me and mention it also in those same outlets that we mentioned a minute ago, we will give you a special prize, a special virtual prize. No, actually won't give you anything. Well, I'll actually be mad at you if you can get these ones, actually. No, I'm kidding. So, I guess I get to go first. What?
You have rage issues.
I do. I do have rage issues, and I have a wonderful outlet. No, not that one.
Music? You have your music.
That's the one. Yes. Da-da-dum-da-dum. Yes, that's my rage music for this week. Look at this thing. You gotta see this thing. Yeah. No. Technical. There you go. See, I actually do this for a living. And I'm gonna skip the woman talking. Let's see. This is the Planetoid Project. No, Plantoid. Plantoid. Did I say it right? Plantoid.
Plantoid.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is a consortium of educated academic people who are getting money from the EU to study how to apply lessons learned from plants the same way they learn from animals and apply it to robotics. And yes, that is what you're seeing right there. They're trying to do robotic roots. Yes, you heard me right. Robotic roots, not a euphemism. The idea is to learn from the way that roots kind of grow and expand and go through and sense the environment and look for moisture and blah, 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 blah. The idea is to use that kind of form factor, something that can expand and use its maneuverability to push its way through the soil and add a sensor pack on the end so they can measure all kinds of aspects of the environment and use it as a platform for learning about the state of the environment. Now, they don't really have an application yet, but they are just exploring the technology, and some of it is kind of cool, and some of it is kind of bizarre looking.
So this raises an important question for me.
Oh, go.
Do roots move around like that? Like, I mean, I know that like leaves may turn towards the sun, you know, that sort of thing. But do roots like flow? I kind of figured they just growed.
Yeah.
These robots are very phallic.
Yes, they are very phallic. Let me put the phallic robots back on the screen. No, that's not the phallic robots. My understanding is that yes, they grow and they look for water. So I'm not a biologist. If the biologist can chime in, that would be awesome. But the idea is to do something. I don't know if they're modeling this after the roots directly, but the idea is to do robots that can actually sense the environment and can maneuver that way, and can. They have two main models they're working on. One actually does the maneuvering based on sensor input, and the other one that will grow and add to its length. Yes, I know.
So that it's for soil penetration, according to the board behind her.
Yes, that's what it says.
You sure this isn't some sort of college humor video?
I swear that this is
double entendres in here.
I swear this is a real project and it was not put together by stoned college students.
I don't know. I think the name Schlongbot is kind of a gift.
Yeah, see, we got where I was going for. There you go. Thank you for finding my humor. Okay. There was a human-robot interaction conference earlier this year, which a lot of really smart robotic people get together and talk about how humans and robots will interact. And this one guy, Dr. Tomoko Yonizawa, and I think I said it right, from the Kansai University in Japan, brought a couple of his prototypes that he's been working on dealing with some of the nonverbal interaction that humans do. I mean, when we talk to other humans, there's body language, there is breath signs, there is sweating and anxiety, there's facial expressions, there's all these things that we do that are part of communication.
Paralanguage.
Not just, yes, not just our speech. So he put together a couple of robots to try to explore how to use some of this nonverbal communication in robots. Now, there's been other projects that have done facial expressions and various things like that, but he wanted to explore some of the more obscure ones. Like, for instance, this guy, is it showing the picture?
Mm-hmm.
Of sad face?
Yes, the sad face robot you're looking at right now gets goosebumps and sweats. I'm just going to leave that out there. So apparently this robot can show anxiety, especially if you put your hand on its leg like that.
That's a leg, isn't it?
I'm assuming that's why he's anxious, because you're touching its cardboard box leg. But yeah, it apparently the
I know trigger warning before this.
I don't know.
Not to mention the last one.
I know.
Oh my God, I know.
All kinds
Well, that's
of...
why we put it up front. In the
I flashed back to gardening.
Yes, exactly.
No, you didn't.
No, I really didn't.
Yeah, a lot of the other one that he brought was, it looks like, and I'll have a picture of this, but to me it looked like a Beanie Baby, and it's got an embedded speaker so that it speaks, but it also has a built-in fan so that it has breath when it speaks like a human would, so you can get the kind of I guess bad breath, or I don't know what would robots need breath for? I don't know. But the idea is to see if you can develop the same kind of nonverbal cues that you get from humans. And I have absolutely no idea what the military application of this is, but I'm sure there is one, and it's coming soon.
Would a robot that sweats like electrocute itself?
I don't know. It really depends on what it's made out of. There are a lot of robots that are made out of non-conductive material. The whole metal robot assumption is not really valid. There's a lot of
fine.
So there. So if you're trying
human.
if you're trying to if you're trying to short circuit a robot, it may not work. See, I'm kind of working on.
I'll write that down.
A battle plan that I'm going to present in the future. Okay. Last one for this week is apparently this guy is the fastest robot on Earth. Oh, and there's an ad. What do I do about the ads? Can I get rid of the ads? Let me skip. There we go. There we go. I skipped the ad. This is a Kickstarter program, so you can actually go support this project and get some cool bonuses like having your own one of these dudes. But it's essentially got 2 rotating sets of legs, and it walks, but it kind of like spokes. And let's see, what's the top speed of this thing? They did a treadmill run of, oh geez, where is it? I don't have it in front of me. They did, it's like 20 miles an hour, I think, is their top speed with remote control. And I think the problem they have is they have to like trail it with a car in order to keep up with it. But you can get these, and you can mount your own cameras on it and your own
freak out your dog.
Yes. They claim it to be biologically inspired, walking robot. I mean, to me, it looks like
a flailing chicken.
To me, it looks just like a couple of wheels that don't have the full circle. So it's not actually walking per se. But I mean, those are some of the keywords that are used nowadays for selling robotic projects.
Does it constantly go whee? Because I really think it should.
It does look like it should go wee. Now, the noise it does make is wonderfully disconcerting, as all robots should be. And you can get flames on yours. You can get flowers. You can get the U.S. flag if you really want to, be patriotic.
Just don't get flames in the flag. You'll get in so much trouble.
I know. I like the one that's got teeth on it and it looks like I could mount at least a small laser on it or something. So I'm hoping to support this Kickstarter. All these links will be in the show notes so that you can also support the oncoming robot apocalypse. Thank you very much. Are there any good questions? I don't think there are any good questions.
And
but
now
anyway.
We know during the apocalypse we have to worry about the robots coming up from underneath, too.
True.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes, watch out for the underground phallic robots. Yes. Who's next? Oh, Eve next. Hi, Eve.
Yep.
Yes, should we do the trigger warning now?
Yeah, I have another trigger warning for this segment specifically.
Okay, here we go. Here's our trigger warning for the segment. Ding.
There may be taxidermied horses.
There may be wonderfully bad jokes.
Well, yeah, there's always bad jokes. Have you watched the show?
Yes. I'm responsible for some of it.
Yeah. Anyway, this week the New York Times ran an article by Jennifer Medina called Warning, the Literary Canon Could Make Students Squirm. Now, trigger warning.
Was she funky and cold? Never mind. Did I choke you?
Eve,
I'm sorry.
I'm force choking her.
He is.
I am joking.
Now, trigger warning for anyone who goes all twitchy whenever trigger warnings are mentioned. It's about trigger
really
warnings.
Entertaining. Hold on.
So, students at some campuses, particularly UC Santa Barbara, Oberlin, Rutgers, and George Washington University, have started requesting the professors add trigger warnings to their syllabi so that students who suffer from extreme emotional reactions to scenes of rape or domestic abuse or graphic violence can prepare appropriately. Now, some of these requests seem reasonable enough at first. For instance, Bailey Loverin, a sophomore at UC Santa Barbara, and a victim of sexual abuse, explains that she took a course in which a graphic film depicting rape was shown. Now, she admits that it didn't cause her harm and she didn't feel threatened, but she could see how some people could be, and she spoke to the professor to suggest that perhaps students should have received some sort of warning before the film was shown. And that doesn't seem too out of line. Furthermore, Loverin makes a distinction between works that could genuinely evoke visceral memories of trauma and slapping warning labels on famous literary works, in the Times words. A distinction could also be made, I think, between giving a verbal warning a day or two ahead of time before showing a graphic film or something, and carefully labeling each individual work on your syllabus. But some students are indeed calling for famous literary works to come with a warning label. Philip Wythe in Rutgers Daily Targum begins by whinging about how much reading English majors have to do, and how emotionally draining that can be, particularly since literature courses sometimes involve works with, quote, grotesque, disturbing, and gruesome imagery, unquote. Take The Great Gatsby, for instance. It contains, quote, gory, abusive, and misogynistic violence, unquote. And Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway involves suicide and a depressed, traumatized former soldier. Also a depressed author, but that's a whole different thing. Wythe specifically discusses, quote, classic works of the 20th and 21st centuries. You know, all those great classics of the 21st century.
Oh, yes.
So either he's unaware that older literature exists, or it's just not that traumatic. He and other trigger warning advocates are careful to make a distinction between trigger warnings and book bannings, for good reason, because if you don't make that distinction, the two could seem really alike. But to be fair, he's not saying that these works should not be taught or that they don't have value. He's just saying students need to be warned about them. For The Great Gatsby, he suggests TW, suicide, domestic abuse, and graphic violence. And since some people also suggest trigger warnings for like drug abuse, it should probably come with an alcohol warning, right? Right? Great Gatsby? Drinking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, God,
in fact,
yeah,
all the great American novels.
Yeah, I'm just thinking Hemingway, you won't be able to get through a book without having a flashback to a beer.
Well, and I'm thinking, you know, the trigger warning for Titus Andronicus might be as long as the play. Anyway, Titus Andronicus jokes for all you Titus Andronicus fans. So, what's the point of trigger warnings? Yeah. Well, according to Wythe, quote, these simultaneously allows students to plan their reading schedule ahead of time for tackling triggering massages and or discussing an alternate reading schedule with their professor at the beginning of the semester. I think he might want to rethink his major. I hope criticism of his writing, though, doesn't cause trauma. No, wait, I don't care. Anyway, he also wants professors to warn students about individual sections of books that might be triggering. You know, the ones that either don't warrant a trigger warning in themselves or do, but, you know, like there are paragraphs that are okay, but paragraphs that aren't. So that those should be, people should be aware of the bits that are triggering. Yeah. Anyway, meanwhile, over at UC Santa Barbara...
Meanwhile, back on Earth.
No.
This is starting to sound like
parody.
movie ratings or
Yeah, I know.
worse, just book. I mean, because it's like book banning or not really like book banning because it's kind of like
It does seem
I don't want
suspiciously like book. Well,
read
it
anything
seems
that's got a
suspiciously
murder.
like a lot of the same books
That was my
are getting targeted.
uptight parent voice.
But over at UC Santa Barbara, the Student Senate wants the school to enact a policy, quote, to protect students with PTSD who may be harshly affected by content such as video scenes, and it would allow these students to miss classes containing such material without losing course points, unquote. There are a number of problems, it seems to me, with these trigger warning proposals. One, if you can't cope with reading The Great Gatsby, real life is going to be never-ending hell.
It really
Second,
depends on where you live and how much money you have, actually. But.
Yeah. Second, they have the potential to become way overdone, way too draconian, way too time-consuming. I mean, again, it's one thing to make accommodations for a student in unusual circumstances, but it's another. And again, if you know your particularly with film or visual images that you know is going to be upsetting, possibly giving a verbal warning beforehand just so students know what's going on. But it's another to have to devise alternative assignments for any student who decides something's too traumatic, because most of these are the professor then is responsible for alternate assignments, or the student who decides they can't read the book or can't watch the movie doesn't have to without any sort of loss of points. So if you have, let's say, half a dozen students in a class who object to several different assignments, you know, one's got a trigger warning with the first book you're reading, the second one's got may be triggered by something later than the semester. This is going to get really complicated really quickly.
Yeah.
And where does it stop? Might pre-med textbooks be too graphic for some students?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of blood.
Yeah. Well, plus there's a lot of medical. I know from talking to people who've been through this that there are shock weeks that they deliberately do for graduating medical professionals, so that they can get exposure to things so that they won't react to them and they can give good care. So
are you saying that there might be triggering events actually in the practice of medicine? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Okay.
Can homeschooled Christians be triggered by biology or geology classes? Or philosophy or world religion classes that, you know, challenge their worldview? And getting back to literature classes, what great literature couldn't be considered triggering in some way? Literature tends to be based on conflict. There's pain, there's trauma, there's violence, even in comedy. And any older work is likely to portray outdated views of women and minorities and all sorts of things. So what's safe? Mary Had a Little Lamb? No, wait. There, a companion animal is depicted as property, and that triggers me. Over at Huffington Post, Soraya Kamali, whose name I'm sure I said wrong, says trigger warnings are really all about the white male hegemony of the academy, and also involves questions about the literary canon. And by the way, apparently white males it's not that they can't suffer trauma, but they're much less likely to. So dudes, you're fine. Now, while the academy isn't perfect, literature departments have been expanding the canon and looking at the established canon in new ways for the past several decades. Feminist scholarship in particular has been an important part of this, and it is an important step forward to go beyond, you know, the 100 great books and look at things people have written who happen not to be dead white males, or looking at the dead white males in different ways, from different perspectives. But it seems to me, if you're going to worry about triggers, one place you're likely to find, say, graphic depictions of violence against women and minorities is, in fact, in the expanded canon, in works by non-whites and non-males. For instance, there are scenes in Ralph Ellison's great novel, The Invisible Man, that are quite jarring. And that's kind of the point, actually. Authors sharing the experience of people outside the white male.
Yeah, people experiencing violence, people experiencing discrimination, and exposing you so you can understand those experiences vicariously without having to go through them.
Catharsis in Aristotle's terminology about tragedy. Yeah.
Oh, snap, you went to the Aristotle.
I did. So, yeah. And again, honestly, I just can't think of precious or many great literary works that wouldn't warrant or couldn't warrant a trigger warning according to someone.
Right.
So I'm imagining syllabi that, like, everything on the syllabus would have some sort of trigger warning. And it just seems to me that's getting a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My World War II in film and literature class would be right out. I'd have to, like, ban veterans from being in my class, you know?
Oh, that's one of the things that UC Santa Barbara, and I guess it's an exception of males being traumatized, that they have a lot of veterans, they say. So they're...
My veterans have been fine. But, okay, I am really annoyed by this. If you're not being challenged, okay, a couple of things. If you're not being challenged, as one of our colleagues said online this week, you should get your money back. That's the first thing, right? The other thing is that traumatic triggers aren't really predictable. It's not necessarily the depiction of violence that gets somebody. It's going to be some sensory experience that is perhaps unrelated or related tangentially to the trigger, and that's when the traumatic realization happens. You know?
Right. Yeah, I was going to say literature isn't all fluffy bunnies, but you know what? Fluffy bunnies could be a trigger for someone if something happened,
especially if they have large pointy teeth.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, you know, if something bad happened and there were wallpaper with fluffy bunnies on it or something, that could be a trigger.
Totally. That's exactly how it works.
One of the things that I've noticed in a lot of these articles, and one of the stories you read, was someone saying, well, I wasn't actually triggered by this, but I could have been.
Right.
And it seems like there's a lot of that in this, that it seems like people are worried that this might happen, and not a lot of instances of
it actually happening
where it actually happened.
Yeah, and
I'm not doubting that it could happen.
Right.
The problem is, how can you predict it?
The articles where people are talking about this, they say, particularly in reference to the New York Times article, which talks about the literary canon making students squirm. They're saying it's not about students squirming, it's about a heart pounding, palms sweating, you know, real fear, like a panic attack almost, or not just almost, in some cases, a panic attack. But again, not examples of it actually happening,
right?
Or necessarily evidence that literature has this effect.
If there are people,
films, I don't know.
Films, I could kind of see
maybe
happening more often, but.
But still,
The big thing
if somebody is so on edge that they could go off at any time, honestly, they shouldn't be in class. They should be talking to a doctor. I mean, if it's that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, to my knowledge, I've never had someone have a flashback during my class, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Nothing that was remotely and you know, this is what, 12, 15 years now of teaching? You know, you'd expect after being in,
That's a rather convincing anecdote there, Bob.
Yeah, I haven't had anyone either.
It's got a point.
Do you ever?
No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
I've never seen it.
Did I get a trigger? I'm sorry.
I've never heard. There should be a dirt warning. Don't get me wrong. So.
But do you ever warn your students, like particularly if you're showing a video that's something, not necessarily that may traumatize them, but that they may be offended by?
I say it on the first day of class that there are some things here that you may be offended by. They're meant to be taken in the spirit of academic inquiry, and this is the place to do it.
Yeah. At our place we used to teach, that was actually part of the required language of the syllabus, that sort of general disclaimer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I have on occasion said something like, this is kind of gross, or you may be offended by the language, but...
So just to get this straight, this is about college students getting credit for a class that even though they have to endure things that they can't stand.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I can tell.
Because it always seemed to me like if you can't stand something, just leave. But I guess there's the academic requirements of the course they have to meet. So. Well,
there is that, because it is like some of them want to change things. But without any penalty.
If you want special accommodation, there are mechanisms in place through the Dean of Students office that would allow that to happen. This student, if needs expanded time because of some sort of medical condition, that's fine. This student needs to be exempted from material of this type for some specific medical condition. I can work with that. Okay. But don't make me the first line, make me the contact person for this person's psychological health.
Right. It sounds like that a lot of schools have, they have a way of dealing with this.
It's just fixing something that's not broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, there are sort of if there is something really serious, like a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. Then that would be something that the disabilities office could deal with, or the dean of students office, and they do at universities. They do things like that. But I know what I was saying. But this is asking accommodations to be made so there's no penalty to the student. They also talk about, like, with films that. You're stuck in a classroom and being uncomfortable, and you can't leave, or you can leave, but that would cause notice. It's like, well,
sit in the back.
Yeah.
Next.
Well, and we have a colleague who teaches film and lit, and I know she had issues, not necessarily trigger warning, but people who said, "Oh, I can't watch it; it's too violent," and that it gets to be a real problem. I mean, don't take film and literature. Well, I mean, there are certain things that you can tell by the topic.
Children's literature classes. You can go to children's literature classes. That would be fine.
Well, I mean,
have you read Grimm's fairy tales?
They're awesome.
A TV show.
You guys are so dark. I love it. What did you say, Tim?
I said that Grimm TV show is pretty damn violent.
That's true.
Watches it.
It is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was getting confused because there's a lot of talk online about trigger warnings now, and people they post with trigger warnings on their Facebook and stuff like that. And I didn't know if that was related to the same thing.
You know what? I wonder if it primes people to actually expect to be offended.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of that in the political realm. There's a lot of that with other things nowadays, where people feel like they have to get upset about anything that offends them, and they have to complain about it publicly, and it seems like it's counter to at least the environment that we kind of wanted in this country as far as free and open discussion. So, and free flow of ideas. But I don't know. We live in a world where it's kind of hard to hide from things you don't want to see.
Yeah, and it is like you can't go to college and expect to live in a bubble.
Yeah.
Unless you bring your own damn bubble with you.
Yeah, which has been done. I'm just saying. Bubble boy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Eve. That was interesting. Very interesting.
I'm sorry, but before you made the bubble boy joke, it triggers my claustrophobia.
And your fear of bubbles.
Oh,
wait, that's Gavin the cat.
Bob talking is a trigger warning for me. Let's see. Tim's next, and he's going to talk about our favorite weirdo.
Deepak. Put him up there.
I'm putting him up. This guy.
Fighting everyone. Trigger warning. Here comes.
Everybody go boo.
Yeah.
Trigger warning. Deepak.
When I do my current talk, I have a Deepak picture in there, and everybody.
Yes, the trigger warning for this is glitzy glasses. If glitzy glasses set you off.
Yeah, they're nice, aren't they?
And, so there you go. He's always got some shiny glasses.
Deepak's making trouble again, and actually it was back in Virtual Skeptics number 68, because I looked it up back in December. I talked about Deepak and his quantum conflict of interest, where he accidentally outed his own employee who was secretly editing his biography on Wikipedia.
Yep.
In a great Keystone Cop open letter incident. You can go back and get the details. But since then, and I've been doing other posts on my Skepticals blog about what I call bad behavior. And some of it is skeptics, but a lot of it is, pseudoscientists and paranormalists breaking the rules online, whether it's on Wikipedia or something like that. And when you look for it, there's a lot of this going on, because a lot of them don't understand the technology or don't realize they're breaking the rules, or they figure they can skate by. And what Deepak has been doing lately, and I've been sort of tracking this for a while, but it kind of came up to the surface again because he suddenly tweeted Susan Gerbic the other day. And he's still fascinated with Wikipedia, and he's raising that whole thing again. But he tweeted her a link, just out of the blue. She's never tweeted to him, and he's never tweeted to her. Out of the blue, he tweets her a link, and she asked me, it's like, what's this link? Because it was some random blog post about, neuroscience or something. And I laugh because I've seen him do this for a long time. He tweets links at people constantly. And he does it because he wants people to read his blog posts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that sound familiar? Because remember somebody else who was tweeting links at us all the time back in 2011 and ended up going to jail for it? Mr. Mabus. Because that's against the rules on Twitter. You can't just randomly @mention everybody you see and shoot links at them.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, shooting links at people on Twitter is not going to get you in jail.
No. Mavis took it a lot. That's a good point. And Mavis took it a lot further than that. He was making death threats and things like that. And occasionally tweeting a link at someone, especially if they're mentioned in the blog post, is actually considered kind of a courtesy thing if you're talking about somebody's project or something like that. I'll get back to the link that he tweeted to Susan later, but I dug into his feed, and it used to be that this type of behavior was hard to monitor because it used to be that the Twitter search only went like a week back. Yeah. So anything that was last month, it was almost impossible to find, and you'd have to scroll through people's feeds and stuff like that. And once it was several years ago, forget about it. You could never find those old tweets, even though they were all still there. If you knew the URL for any tweet, you can get to it. It's all still there. Well, last year they finally fixed Twitter search so you can find all the tweets. And it's not real obvious. A lot of people don't know it's there, but there's an advanced search in Twitter. So you can search for things like how many tweets has Brian Gregory sent to Tim Farley? And stuff like that. Or show me all the tweets that Brian Gregory has sent to Tim Farley, and you can distinguish.
And I apologize for all of them.
You can distinguish by whether it's just a reply or if it's just a mention. So I started digging around and looking in Deepak's history. And if you look at his feed, on any given day, he's always tweeting. There's 7 people that he's always tweeting to all the time. Richard Dawkins, Michael Shermer, Jerry Coyne, Lawrence Krauss, Sam Harris, and Dan Dennett. That's 6. There's another one I'm missing. But anyway.
Susan Gerbic.
Susan Gerbic.
No, not Susan Gerbic. He's only tweeted to Susan once. And he tweets to them all the time, whatever his latest blog post is, whatever his latest article, videos that his buddy did, all sorts of stuff. Oh, I guess the 7th one was P.Z. Myers. He actually doesn't.
I was going to say Christopher Hitchens because
I didn't look. It's possible he was tweeting Christopher Hitchens way back when, but I didn't bother to look at that. If you go to the next slide, here's a couple of the tweets that he sent that I thought were interesting to point out. These are to Daniel Dennett and to Evolution is True is Jerry Coyne, because that's the name of his blog, and his book, Why Evolution is True. And as you can see, he's kind of taunting them. Now, if you were to go to Deepak Chopra's feed and to see these tweets, you'd think, oh, look, Deepak Chopra is conversing with the new atheists and having intellectual discussions, and he's getting in their face and da-da-da-da-da. The thing you don't see until you actually click on the tweet and dig into it a little bit is Jerry Coyne never talks to anybody on Twitter. That is a one-way conversation. And Daniel Dennett is the same way. I defy you to find a place where either Daniel Dennett or Jerry Coyne has ever replied to anybody, because they don't. They happen to use their Twitter as an announcement feed, which is how some people use Twitter. They just post their blog posts. All you see on Jerry Coyne's feed is blog posts. Daniel Dennett does post comments and things, but you can tell it's predetermined, one a day or something like that. But here he is getting in their face and yelling at them and stuff, and tweeting links at them. And the question comes up, doesn't he notice that they never reply? Why is he even doing this? And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think...
Quantum.
Well, maybe it's a quantum something. I'm guessing that he wants to be associated with them or something, or he wants to be seen as someone who's debating these people.
No, this is not...
Is it trolling? Just trying to get them to respond?
Or trolling them.
Yeah.
I strongly suspect that his audience is not Jerry Coyne or Daniel Dennett.
Yes.
It's
primary
his
and secondary audience.
Right.
His followers are his primary audience. So
exactly. So he's trying to put on a show for his followers that, look, I'm talking to Jerry Coyne, I'm talking to Daniel Dennett. He's not. I dug through the stats, okay, and as I am wont to do, and I have a spreadsheet in front of me. He has tweeted at, Jerry Coyne, he's tweeted at 61 times.
Wow.
Just between November and this month. And Jerry Coyne has never tweeted at Deepak Chopra. So 61 to nothing. Daniel Dennett, he's tweeted at from May of last year to this May 33 times, so 3 times a month or so. Daniel Dennett has never replied. He's also tweeted at Neil Tyson, who was not in that list, but he's tweeted at him 15 times. He has never replied. The big winner is Richard Dawkins, who, it has to be said, Deepak actually has debates with Richard Dawkins and stuff like that. But Richard Dawkins does reply to people on Twitter occasionally. He gets into arguments and conversations with people. Deepak has tweeted at him 599 times, most of those in the last year. And Richard Dawkins has never replied to him, ever. So anybody reading Deepak's feed and seeing all these conversations is falsely getting the idea that Deepak is having all these great conversations with all these great public intellectuals, and it's not really true.
No, you see, the thing is, he's there not brave enough, courageous enough to answer him back. They have no
Right.
answer for him.
Right. Well, a couple of them do answer him occasionally, and those are kind of funny too. Michael Shermer and Sam Harris have occasionally answered to him, and often very dumbfounded, sort of, you don't understand the article you link to, or stuff like that. Or one time there was a funny exchange where Deepak posted the link to his militant skepticism and why skepticism is doomed article from last November to Shermer, and said, this article concerns you. And Shermer read the article and came back and said, I read the article, it doesn't mention me at all. What are you talking about?
And I'm in no way concerned.
I'm in no way
not concerned.
So if you go to the next slide, another interesting side effect is this behavior is spreading. This character, Troy of Is actually a young graduate student, as you can see in that second tweet, of psychology named Jordan Flesher, and I think he lives in Chicago. And he was Deepak Chopra's co-author on those articles, The Rise and Fall of Militant Skepticism, last fall. And ever since he's been associated with Deepak, he's been retweeting Deepak out the. Just look at his feed, Troy of Is on Twitter. It's all Deepak stuff. He retweets constantly, but he's also been doing the exact same thing Deepak's been doing. Now, Deepak has almost 2 million followers, and he's got what's called a verified account, which is like the very top of cream of the crop on Twitter. So it's very unlikely Deepak's account is going to get disabled in a Mabus fashion for anything that Deepak does, short of treason. But this guy only has a couple hundred followers, and as you can see from these tweets, he's being quite rude. A couple of times he said to Krauss, "Hey, Krauss." This is Lawrence Krauss, a very famous guy who's written several books, and he's yelling at him saying, "Hey, Krauss," and accusing him of ad hominem attacks. And then twice in a row, I only show one of the tweets here, he said that Daniel Dennett is a disgrace to academia as a whole, which is just pure trolling. Again, Lawrence Krauss did not reply to him, so this again gives the appearance that he...
Well, he was probably mortified.
Involved in a conversation that he's
clearly.
And as I said before, Daniel Dennett doesn't reply to anybody, so he's probably not even aware of this tweet. And, not to defend those guys, they probably get a lot of crap in their mentions. If I was somebody like Richard Dawkins, I would have an intern handling my Twitter account for me, because who wants to deal with the kind of level of crap that they probably get? But I want to focus on the behavior that Deepak is engaging in here, because this is, exactly the sort of thing that Mabus was doing, exactly the sort of thing the Blockbot was doing, exactly the sort of thing that got all those atheists in trouble in my, I think one of the oldest articles I wrote in my bad behavior category is about a bunch of atheists who thought there was an anti-atheist campaign going on, and what was happening was they were running afoul of these same rules, these Twitter spam rules that say you can't just tweet at people who are not tweeting back at you. It's against the rules, especially if you're shooting links at them, saying, read my blog, read my blog, read my blog, which Deepak does all the time. But
and if you create a bot that responds to anybody who mentions bacon on Twitter, apparently that's a bad thing too.
Yeah, that will get you in trouble too.
But bacon.
I tried it.
To circle back to Susan, the funny thing about the tweet that set this whole thing off was Deepak tweeted a link at Susan, and it was a link to some weird thing about the brain, and Susan was like, "What? Why is Deepak Chopra tweeting this link to me?" And I started laughing because I knew that the post after that on his blog was a post about Susan's project, and he had spammed the wrong link. He had accidentally pasted the wrong link into Twitter. So I actually replied and said, even as a Twitter troll, Deepak Chopra is a failure.
Damn.
So that's what Deepak's up to. He's also causing a little bit of trouble, and there is that blog post if you want to go see it on his blog, but I don't like linking to Huffington Post on general principles. But he's, again, trying to get his Wikipedia article fixed, blah, 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 blah. But I wanted to point out that he's engaging in this kind of behavior on Twitter that we've seen people get disabled for time after time after time, and he's managing to get away with it. But it's pretty slimy, in my opinion.
So while you were talking, I did an advanced Twitter search for all of the times I've tweeted you.
Oh yeah?
Apparently, I've tweeted you 5 times.
Really?
And they were all links to Deepak Chopra.
Are you on top or all? Make sure you click where it says all.
I did all, and apparently I've only mentioned you 5 times on Twitter, and the last time was back in 2012. About at night. And
I guess every Wednesday, so we have no reason to talk on Twitter.
I guess I just, unless I got a link to spam, I don't talk to you on Twitter.
I do see 2 more 2 replies to earlier. Mark Price said, I know of one case of a panic attack due to rape in a reading in class that happened this year.
Okay.
And so, so I was...
so there have been cases,
My experience is not representative.
It's... I'm sure it can happen.
Yeah.
I just don't think it happens that often.
Yeah, it does seem like there is a way of already dealing with this. If you have a relationship with the school that you're going to, there's recourse. It's not something
any
that has
halfway decent school is going to have counseling services just for starters.
Yeah. So if your school doesn't do that, you go to a different school. See, solve the problem.
Yeah.
In the most callous way I can. Okay, so Bob's got something he's going to kind of throw in here at the last minute.
Yeah.
That's not what I meant. I didn't mean to say it that way. But you're talking about? Oh, you're gonna. Oh, should I have like background creepy music because you're gonna talk about misinformation and?
Nah, this is all right.
Bob talking about conspiracy theories. What's up?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So this week, all conspiracy theories came to an end. All of them.
Dun, dun.
Wow.
2 of them, and by come to an end, I mean became slightly more implausible. And actually, one of them was kind of true. So. It is with great indifference that I have to announce that HAARP is going the way of the Dodosaurus.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to never exist?
That was an uncomfortable silence.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was awkward.
The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program was a U.S. military project that microwaved the sky. Literally microwaved the sky. And by literally, I mean almost imperceptibly. Over 100 transmitters blasted a patch of Alaskan sky to excite molecules in the ionosphere, a region of the atmosphere which is too high to reach by balloon or aircraft, but too low to be sampled from orbit. And so when it's bombarded with these radio waves, the ionosphere glows a little bit, and you can examine the color of light and tell what makes up the ionosphere. Okay?
Does it make spirals?
Sometimes it does.
Popcorn?
But it also can manipulate the weather, control minds, and cause earthquakes.
Woohoo!
Yay! And so such a versatile doomsday machine is bound to end up in a couple of conspiracy theories, and it did. It's blamed for everything from sinkholes to droughts. And it turns out making sinkholes not paying the bills. The Air Force has finally announced that the facility will be shut down in mid-June following a final experiment. And we can expect that whatever crappy weather happens in the world that week will be attributed to the HAARP's array last hurrah of evil.
Unless it's an actual apocalypse.
I know, unless it's an actual apocalypse. So the weather control conspiracy theory is on the face of it absurd. Weather systems are immense, chaotic systems of unfathomable energy. I looked into this today. The amount of energy released daily by the condensation of water droplets in a mature hurricane per day equals 200 times the world's total electricity generating capacity, which is 5.2 times 10 to the 19th joules per day. HAARP puts out about
That's a lot of joules.
That's a lot of joules. HAARP puts out about 6 millionths of 1% of that energy. So, like, yeah,
Just
So
enough to excite the chemtrails.
Yeah.
I
That's
know.
what they want you to
Just-
think.
It's
I know.
pushing the first domino over, Bob.
I know. I was just thinking, but what about the butterfly effect? And to that, I say,
That's a bad Ashton Kutcher movie.
Trigger warning.
To base your
Yeah, I know.
channel on.
Trigger warning!
so the idea, the idea of agency behind the weather is probably as old as the human brain, going back to deities who were propitiated in hopes of bringing good harvests, or when weather was thought to signify the evidence of the pleasure or displeasure of the gods. HAARP seems to be a modern secular version of the myth of a mind behind the weather, replacing deities atop Mount Olympus with evil nerds in Alaska. Nonetheless, I have, even though HAARP is going to be closing, I have a Google alert out to see who's the first person to explain bad weather in terms of HAARP after it's shut down in June, and I will tweet about it without mercy, I promise you.
Maybe we need a Twitter bot to do that.
Yes.
Oh my God, that would be
Can you tweet-
HAARP
wonderful.
was shut
Can
down
you
last
tweet-
week. HAARP was shut down last week.
Can you tweet a link at me every time someone mentions his HAARP? And,
I could totally do that with IFT.
If
And that.
yes, if then that, yes.
I
which
can
I
make
love.
sure that you get lots of email. Eve knows this. So, all right. So another source of conspiracy theories that has actually probably been getting people killed for the last few years is the despicable CIA practice of using vaccination and other public health programs
Oh, yeah.
to get close to people otherwise inaccessible regions of the world. Information about this practice came up after the death of Osama bin Laden. We're on the point of eradicating polio, for instance. The WHO reports that it's endemic only in 3 countries, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Pakistan, particularly in regions that suffer from insecurity, weak health systems, and poor sanitation. There are also 2 other ones, Cameroon and Syria. Their polio has popped up again. But for the most part, the WHO is too polite to mention that these same regions are controlled by religious nutjobs who are suspicious of the outside world encroaching on their society. And this is where conspiracy theories come in. Conspiracy theories about perceived threats to absolute religious authority, for instance, government and international initiatives, for instance, isolate and protect these ideologies. So that's one of the things that these conspiracy theories do. One in Nigeria was that the polio vaccine would sterilize Muslim boys, for instance. One of the crazy ones that the Taliban came up with was that the U.S. was using vaccination programs as a front to carry out oh, shit. Yeah, so that turned out to be true. Those of us who take an interest in alternative medicine know that healthcare delivery, more than many other areas of life, it seems out, depends on trust. For instance, the trusted doctor is looking out for you. You have trust in the diagnosis, trust in the necessity of procedures you're getting. Trust that basically your healthcare provider is looking out for you above all else. And the CIA single-handedly, through all of the necessary public health relationships that we need to eradicate polio from the world, into question. Naughty CIA.
Bad 3-letter alphabet.
Really bad, yeah. So we've seen vaccine workers assassinated in Pakistan, and I haven't seen any direct one-to-one correlation, but it's not helping. So polio has popped up in other countries, and it can wiggle out of these countries. Actually, the whole reason it seems that this past week the CIA announced that it was no longer going to be doing this was because the Pakistani government had to announce actions to quell the spread of a new wave of polio. According to the AP quote, Lisa Monaco, President Barack Obama's top counterterrorism advisor, wrote to the deans of 19 prominent public health schools last week, saying that the CIA has agreed it would no longer use vaccination programs or workers for intelligence purposes. Thanks, Obama. So yeah.
Yeah.
No slides.
No slides. Meanwhile, our friend Blake is on Twitter making HAARP jokes.
Making weird HAARP
Yes.
acronyms.
HAARP's weapon was the parabolic ozone oscillation annihilator. The harpoon was no laughing matter. And they also had the concentrated computerized orgone radiation distributor, which I guess HAARP cord.
HAARP C cord.
Oh, I get it now. Oh boy.
It took me a minute to figure that one out.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that one to me. Okay then. So we've got all the stories in, and we've got to wrap up the show because we're starting to get over time here. So, what's next? We got to do the trivia question.
Yeah, it was an easy one as I expected. Pierre, I think, got it first on the YouTube comments. And the answer was The Simpsons is where Junior Skeptic came from. It was a sight gag in the X-Files spoof episode.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Called the Springfield Files, where Homer spots an alien and the two characters from the X-Files, which also aired on the same network as The Simpsons in the U.S., came to Springfield to investigate. And at some point, Lisa has a copy of Junior Skeptic magazine, and so Daniel Loxton took the name from there.
Nice. Very nicely done. Way to go, Pierre. It's Pierre
Cloutier.
Cloutier. And unfortunately, nobody got both videos behind me.
Yeah, they're having a lot of trouble with the right one.
Yeah.
The left one.
I believe who got the was it Alex that got the first black hole on the left screen, and it's actually the final battle between Maximilian the evil robot and what's the little guy's name? I can't remember his name right now.
The what?
The little good robot that's fighting the big bad robot. Well,
yeah, the little egg thing.
Yeah, I forget his name.
Probably R2-D2.
No.
Oh.
It had a clever name. I loved him when I was a kid. And the other one is it's an old kids TV program, which Blake got close. Talking about kids programs, and I believe it was from the late 70s. Kids program called Zap, and that is the Pie episode, which has the band Hard and Firm, which I can't believe how that name could get on a kids show, singing the Pie song, and the kids are singing along.
Oh, I remember a kids show called Zoom. I didn't know there was one called Zap.
The fact that the word Zap appears actually on the screen
should be a good
yeah.
hint.
It's Zoom, Zap, and there is a cake reference. So I guess book time. Let me read the announcements while you guys get your books. TAM 2014 is coming, and it's coming quickly. That means grant programs are looking for donors and looking to hand out free tickets. One for teachers at icbseverywhere.com and for Rising Stars of Skepticism at risingstar.sarahmayhew.com. Go check them out and give, or I guess you can
receive.
Receive.
Yep.
Was it Bob? I don't think it was Bob. Bill put that on Twitter. It was an acronym, though. They were all acronyms on the black hole. Let's see. I'm at Balticon this weekend. There's a conference here in Baltimore that's a sci-fi and literary conference, sci-fi fantasy. And they have a big contingent of podcasters and a good science track and a few skeptic talks. Sharon is also going to be there,
Yes, virtual skeptic emerita.
Yeah.
Sharon Hill.
Yep, Sharon Hill will be speaking as well. Anyone who's in the
one
area.
who made our business cards no longer accurate. That's what we refer to her. Awkward.
Okay. Awkward.
One of the robots was called Vincent. Another
Vincent,
one was called
that's right. That was the name of the little guy.
Bob
Vincent
was the one that was voiced by Slim Pickens.
Yes. And Bob was the other one that was the same type as Vincent, but was all beat up and ended up dying. It was so sad. Okay, so book
I had to
time.
look that up.
Thank you. Thank you for looking that up.
I'm
Let's let Eve go first this week.
Huh?
Book time. Read.
Among the dwarfs is the naked and bearded demon whom the master of the Berlin Passion drew as rising out of a cluster of leaves, holding on to a flower stem and pulling viciously at a bird's tail. He is like a putto, aged without abandoning his playfulness. Also among the dwarfs are the wild men and women, the former fitted out with clubs, bows, and arrows, whom Israel von Meckenem portrays in one of his prints as finding their way upward through the twisting foliage of a plant to the winding petals of its flower.
Awkward. Go, Bob.
And so, in late September 54 BC, Caius Julius Caesar, quote, who bestrode the world like a colossus, left the shores of Britain to pursue his path of destiny through the Gaulish Wars, the Civil War, the defeat of his rival Pompey, the bed of Queen Cleopatra, and finally his end on the Ides of March in 44 BC.
Tim?
May 16th, 1994. Asteroid 13123, also known as 1994 Ka, was discovered. It was named Tyson in honor of Neil deGrasse Tyson, host of the New Cosmos TV series. Yep. May 28th, 2009, Wikipedia banned all internet addresses and accounts associated with the Church of Scientology from editing on the site. Several critics of Scientology were also banned. May 29th, 1954, the first annual Bilderberg Group conference began. It has since become a continuing obsession for conspiracy theorists. And May 30th, 1969, the UFO group MUFON was founded as the Midwest UFO Network.
What was the organization that was before MUFON?
Pre-MUFON.
There have been a bunch.
They had an office.
It's changed the name of its several times.
It was I can't remember right now, but it was part of our Skeptor. Was the previous location of the, and I can't remember the name of the organization. Okay. Let me read. Jesus said how awful life was in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are they that mourn. That's a quote. And quote, blessed are the meek. And quote, blessed are they who do hunger and thirst after righteousness, unquote. Henry David Thoreau said most famously, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, unquote. So it is not one whit mysterious that we poison the water and air and topsoil and construct ever more cunning doomsday devices, both industrial and military. Let us be perfectly frank for a change. For practically everybody, the end of the world can't come soon enough. What is your book, Eve?
Wild Men in the Middle Ages by Richard Bernheimer.
I like the picture.
Yes.
Bob.
Caesar's Invasion of Britain by Peter Beresford Ellis.
The great Peter Beresford Ellis.
The great Peter Beresford Ellis.
Since Bob read a book, I pulled the Bob trick and read something that's not a book.
I figured.
The back page, the last laugh page of Skeptical Inquirer, which has skeptical anniversaries, which I compile for.
Awesome. Yay!
So if you want your little dose of skeptic history on paper, get yourself a Skeptical Inquirer. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. It's on the little comedy page on the back.
I've heard of that magazine, and I think it's good.
It's really good. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
Now, they'll basically publish anything, really. I mean...
Look at the trigger warning on that cover.
Trigger warning.
No kidding. I get pissed off by evil little clowns.
Uh-oh.
Okay, and my book, since I have to wrap up here, is the wonderful Kurt Vonnegut, Timequake, which I've been reading some of his stuff.
Yay!
He's got an amazing wit that I love. So, And I guess that's that. That's the show. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for contributing all your funny stuff and asking your questions we didn't get to. No, it's not pre-fun. And there's the logo. And there's the music, which I hit the right button this time. Look at that. Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of whatstheharm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself, and Doubtful News. Our logo is on my site, Blaskiewicz, and our theme music is by Tremor and used with permission. You're dancing. Trust me.